What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Steven Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt practice report on this, the middle of the week, Florida State week. Let's talk about this. Might be a little bit of a shorter video. We've got some more content coming for you later tonight with the Panthers basketball, taking on Pitt Johnstown, an exhibition at the scrimmage. But we still got some football to talk about as well. We had a pretty lengthy conversation with Pitt offensive coordinator Frank Cignetti today, just about the state of the offense and more, the development of Christian Bayer, the lack of targets for Gavin Bartholomew, and just in general, kind of his philosophy about quarterback development. And I think my biggest takeaway, about his overarching message and what he wanted to convey to us was to stay the course. He repeated over and over the value of continuity. He referenced some of his NFL experience, saying that some of these guys that we see as real successful in the NFL, and these guys are obviously really talented, but, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Cignetti says those guys benefited from being in the same system for multiple years, having the same coaches, being able to run the same stuff and understand what it's supposed to look like. He also pointed to the fact that it is Christian Bayer's just his fourth start. He's going into his fourth week as starting quarterback of the Pitt Panthers this week. And to that extent, Bayer learns more and more with every week. And I think there's some truth to that idea. I think you have seen week-to-week improvements from Bayer up until, last week when he throws 4 interceptions and the offense, the starting offense at least, doesn't even manage to come up with any kind of points. The only touchdown of the game, the only score of the game for Pitt was a touchdown pass from backup quarterback Nate Yarnell. So the offense not looking very good right now, and I do buy into some of that idea, at least a little bit, that there is value in continuity, and that keeping the same guys around and keeping the same coaches and allowing people to be able to develop is good. Is good for everyone. Is good for quarterbacks. Good for everyone involved. But to be honest with you, this felt a little bit more like Frank Cignetti. We kind of understand the patterns of how certain coaches are made available throughout the year and throughout training camp to the media. This felt like a final public pitch for Cignetti to keep his job. He really, a final stand for him to be able to make his case for why he's the right guy to lead this offense. And this one quote, I thought, when he talked about recruiting Christian Bayer and bringing him in, and how he kind of sold Bayer on Pitt, kind of set that alarm off in my head. And I'll read it to you right now. This quote from Cignetti, quote, "When he, Christian, chose to come here back in January, we talked about it's the journey. What did we mean by that? He knew that he had 3 years of eligibility, and it's not where he was in January, but it's where he wants to go within his 3 years," close quote. I think this is pretty clearly Cignetti making an appeal to Pat Narduzzi and saying, look, I sold this kid on 3 years with me. He believes in me, and I think you should as well. And I think it's pretty obvious that Christian does believe in Frank Cignetti. He said that publicly, but even if you don't believe that, I don't think a transfer quarterback signs on to spend 3 years at a school or to transfer to a school where he does not believe in the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach. I think, he showed his faith in Frank Cignetti as soon as he arrived here. I also think, there are maybe a couple of reasons to believe in Frank Cignetti, even if you don't like his calling. I think he does have a bunch of proven skills as a quarterback's coach and as a developer and as an in-practice guy. I've heard he spends a lot more time on the practice field, day to day, than Mark Whipple. I can't exactly speak to that. I didn't cover Mark Whipple. I wasn't at practices that he covered, but I do notice Frank being really involved with the quarterbacks on his own. And I think it really enjoys the kind of leader of men aspect of that job as well. And I think, as far as his public comments, it seems like, he has the right idea generally about that stuff. You don't know how those actually play into guys' lives, but I think there are some aspects of Frank Cignetti's skill set that are valuable. That said, the actual stuff on game day has not been good. And you look at his track record and the stuff that he wants you to have faith in, I don't know if he's earned that same kind of faith over his 2 years in Pittsburgh. So my counter to Frank Cignetti would be this, his argument that continuity is really valuable. Well, continuity only works if there's progress and what many would call proof of concept. I'm not sure that exists here right now because these aren't just 1-year problems. You can even go back to last season. And even then, Cignetti had an All-American running back who could rip off a 20-yard run or a 60-yard touchdown to break Pitt out of a bad spot pretty frequently when they had some subpar quarterback play. To that extent, his run of quarterbacks here, thinking specifically of Slovis, Djokovic, and now Veyer, don't inspire a ton of confidence that he is a great evaluator, recruiter, and developer. Veyer's still an open question, but Djokovic, he developed Djokovic going all the way back to his time at Boston College. He develops, had to develop Slovis a little bit, had to get him to fit in this offense. And he took, I think, are still some talented players. I know what Djokovic was. I know what Slovis was here at Pitt. But these were guys with some track record of success. These are guys with some obvious talent going back to their high school days. And it just didn't work out in Pittsburgh. And at a certain point, you look to the top when talented people don't exactly give you the results that you're looking for. I understand Cignetti's had a lot to fight against this year with the offense as a whole. All offensive line injuries that are huge and massive and extensive, and I still think go kind of underappreciated just because they've been so commonplace this year. I think they go underappreciated by the fan base. The quarterback change that affects things. That kind of sets your clock back a little bit. And there was some roster turnover even before the year started. I mean, losing your leading rusher, passer, and receiver certainly affects how you are going to play this year and how you are going to enter a year. But there's been little progress from game 1 to game 8. We just finished game 8. I think you look at Veyer and he's shown some flashes and he showed some marginal improvements, but that Notre Dame game was a huge step back. The running game has taken a huge step back. The pass catchers have shown some flashes, but Gavin Bartholomew didn't get a target last time out. This is a group that I think looks a lot less than the sum of their parts. Tons of talent up and down this team. I think there are tons of competent, if not really good, Power 5 football players on this offense, but they are not living up to expectations. And at a certain point, your guys are your guys, your players are your players. This isn't, we can get into that conversation a little bit later. I read a story in ESPN about, Pat Narduzzi's comments for last week, how they tie into what Deion Sanders talked about, if you saw that this weekend, but just about quality of players now and what you need to do when those players don't live up to your expectations. But for as much as we think that Narduzzi is chomping at the bit to replace these guys, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think their guys are their guys. And even if Pat Narduzzi wanted to replace these guys, I don't know if he can do the wholesale roster turnover thing or will do the wholesale roster turnover thing that Deion Sanders did. So these are his guys. And they've been his guys through good years. And then this year, which has been a bad year, a lot of them, we've seen some success, but we've seen more lows. And I think the talent that he has is the talent that he's going to have to stick with. So really, unless there are some steps forward and soon, I pretty hard to imagine the Panthers don't start looking somewhere else pretty soon. Because like I said, this seemed like Cignetti's last kind of public appeal that he can give himself, in terms of his words about, hey, look, this is my plan. This is what I believe in. And this is why you should believe in me too. And this is what I think I can do for our offense. He's still got 4 games to prove that the system can work under him, that he does have what it takes to lead this offense. But he's got to do something with them. And he hasn't really been able to do much with the, let's call it, 21 games, 22, however many he's been offensive coordinator, how many he's coached over these past 2 years. And the results haven't been super promising, especially with Abanikanda not in that backfield. So we'll see how all that heads. They've got another game to play this weekend against Florida State. We'll check in one more time after we talk to Pat Narduzzi tomorrow afternoon about what to look forward to in that game, or maybe what not to look forward to, and where this team can go from there. But with that, I'm headed out of here. Thanks for tuning in to another Inside Pitt Practice Report. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@InsideThePanthers. We'll have another live stream tonight after the basketball game, breaking that down. It's not televised, so I can hopefully give you a little bit more in-person insight into that game, Pitt versus Pitt Johnstown tonight at 7 at the Pete. And make sure to find all our reporting from that game and then through the end of Florida State week at InsideThePanthers.com. Appreciate you all tuning in. Until next time,